Hey guys, tonight we slip into the muddy, smoky, deeply under-caffeinated world of the medieval peasant, where your alarm clock is not a phone, not a smartwatch, not even a polite little beep, but a rooster with anger issues and a draft sneaking through a wall made of wattle, daub and optimism. You open your eyes in darkness so complete it feels thick, and for one long moment you have no idea what time it is, only that your back hurts, your feet are cold, and your entire body feels like it was assembled yesterday by a blacksmith in a hurry. You probably won't survive this, at least not with modern standards and your suspicious dependence on memory foam. So, before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe. And while you're down there, post your location and local time in the comments, because I always love seeing where in the world you're drifting off from tonight. Now, dim the lights, maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum, and let's ease into tonight's journey together. You wake before sunrise because, in your world, daylight is money, food, duty, and the only thing standing between your family and a very awkward conversation with hunger. There is no luxurious 5 more minutes. Medieval life has looked at your snooze button and laughed directly in its face. You are lying on a straw mattress, and I use the word mattress here with a generosity that should probably earn me sainthood. It is a lumpy sack filled with straw, maybe rushes, maybe whatever dry plant material was available when somebody last decided sleeping on bare boards was getting a little too theatrical. Over time it has compacted into a shape that lovingly supports none of your important bones. It crackles when you move, it pokes you when you don't, and if you are especially lucky, it also hosts a tiny republic of fleas who have been dining all night like they paid for the room. This is one of the most mainstream truths of medieval peasant life. Sleep was often communal, practical, and not especially private. Entire families commonly shared one small space, and sometimes even the same bed or sleeping platform, depending on wealth, region, and season. Historians know from household records, legal disputes, and later descriptions that privacy, as you understand it, is basically science fiction. If you roll over in the night, you are likely to meet a child's elbow, your spouse's knee, or a suspiciously damp corner of blanket that nobody wants to discuss. The cottage around you is still dark, but it is not silent. Someone is breathing heavily nearby. A child coughs. A chicken, because medieval life refuses to maintain boundaries, mutters from somewhere too close to your sleeping area. In poorer homes, animals may be kept nearby or under the same roof, especially in colder weather, because livestock are valuable, warmth is valuable, and apparently the line between family member and woolly roommate is negotiable. The air smells of ash, damp wool, stale straw, and smoke. So much smoke. Most peasant homes have a central hearth, and in earlier medieval cottages especially, smoke often drifts upward only in the most vague and philosophical sense. Chimneys exist in some places and periods, yes, but they are not universal luxuries in every humble home. A lot of smoke simply lingers, hangs, and politely seasons your lungs over a lifetime. If you have ever sat too close to a campfire and spent the next hour smelling like a disappointed log, imagine that, but indoors, repeatedly for decades. And this is where the tiredness begins, not in the fields, not at noon, not after labour, but right here in the dark. Your body never really got the kind of rest it needed. You went to sleep tired. You woke up tired. The entire system is beautifully consistent. Your blanket, if you have a decent one, is heavy and scratchy, probably wool. Wool is warm, yes, but it is also the fabric equivalent of being hugged by a sheep with opinions. In winter, it may not be enough. In summer, the cottage might feel close and stale, but dawn still bites with chill. Medieval homes are not climate controlled. They are climate negotiated. Sometimes poorly. And then there is the question of when you slept. Historians still argue whether segmented sleep, what some call first sleep and second sleep, was a widespread medieval norm or more variable, depending on season, class and region. There is good evidence from later pre-industrial Europe that many people woke naturally in the middle of the night for a while before sleeping again. Maybe you stir at midnight to check the embers. Maybe to relieve yourself. Maybe because your youngest child has decided this is an ideal time to become emotional. Maybe because something small and itchy has just walked across your ankle with criminal confidence. So even when you technically sleep for several hours, it is not always deep, uninterrupted, luxurious rest. It is sleep with interruptions, responsibilities, smoke, and at least one unidentified creak in the darkness that your medieval brain immediately files under wolves, spirits, thieves, or Margaret's goat again. You push yourself upright, and your whole body objects. Your lower back feels stiff from yesterday's labour. Your shoulders are sore. Your hands are rough and probably cracked, especially in colder months. Medieval peasants did not need gym memberships, because life itself was a long-running subscription to manual suffering. Every movement has a memory in it. Yesterday's lifting lives in your knees. Last week's hoeing lives in your wrists. Last month's harvest still sends a complaint from somewhere behind your ribs. And yet, despite all that, you are not waking into a leisurely morning routine involving oatmeal with chia seeds and a brief mindfulness session. You are waking into necessity. A faint grey light begins to seep around the edges of the door or through a shutter crack, and the room changes shape. Things emerge slowly: a stool, a pot, a bench, a hanging bunch of onions if fortune is smiling, maybe a spinning tool, maybe a patched cloak, maybe the family's best bowl, which is also the family's only bowl pretending to have status. The house is not empty, but it is sparse. Objects are few, because every object has to justify its existence. There is a quirky little truth hidden in this gloom. In some villages, people believed certain protective charms or household rituals could help guard the home at night from bad luck, illness, or supernatural trouble. Bits of iron, herbs, blessed objects, or spoken prayers might quietly share space with everyday tools. So while you are exhausted, underfed, and one bad harvest away from despair, you are also living in a world where the line between practical survival and cosmic negotiation is pleasantly blurry. You stand. The floor is cold-packed earth, maybe strewn with rushes, maybe not recently enough for comfort. Your first steps of the day feel heavier than they should, and that heaviness matters, because this is not dramatic, cinematic exhaustion. This is the slower, duller kind, the kind that settles into generations, the kind built from low calories, repetitive labour, stress, poor sleep, seasonal shortages, and bodies expected to keep going anyway. That is the secret of why medieval peasants are always tired. It is not just one hard day. It is every day stacked on every other day until fatigue becomes the weather of your life. Outside, dawn is beginning, and with it comes work. But before fields and ploughs and hunger really tighten their grip, this first moment tells you almost everything. You are already behind the energy your body needs. You wake in debt, to sleep, to comfort, to warmth, to time itself. And the sun, very rudely, has no sympathy. You do not rise from that crackling straw nest and head straight into a cheerful medieval breakfast spread with steaming porridge, buttered toast, fresh fruit, and someone in the corner delicately slicing artisanal pear. That is not your life. That is a painting commissioned by someone whose family owns 6 pigs and a vineyard. Your morning meal, if it happens at all in any satisfying sense, is less breakfast of champions and more administrative paperwork filed by your stomach to delay collapse until noon. It is the edible equivalent of a shrug. The hearth is stirred back to life if it has not gone fully cold. Ash shifts. A little heat returns. Somebody reaches for yesterday's pot, because in a peasant household, very little is truly yesterday's anything. Food loops. Meals recycle. If modern leftovers had a medieval ancestor, it would be pottage, the great bubbling democracy of peasant cuisine. Pottage is your constant companion, your culinary destiny, your emotional support stew. It is usually some combination of grains, vegetables, herbs, and whatever else can be spared, all simmered together into a thick or thin mixture, depending mostly on luck, season, and whether the household is pretending to be optimistic. Oats, barley, peas, beans, cabbage, leeks, onions, these are the sort of ingredients that drift through your bowl if fortune and weather have not recently quarrelled. This is one of the big historical facts of everyday medieval life. For many peasants across much of Europe, meals were simple, repetitive, and heavily based on cereals and pottage. Bread and grain products formed the backbone of the diet. Meat was limited. Freshness was seasonal. Variety was a luxury, not a lifestyle brand. So you take your bowl, wooden if you are lucky, earthenware if your household has slightly more dignity, and peer into a breakfast that may look like warm mud with ambitions. It smells faintly of onion and smoke. It has the texture of something that has already accepted disappointment. And yet, you eat it. Because you are hungry. Not dramatic banquet hall hunger. Not I skipped lunch because I got busy hunger. Real, low, constant, body-deep hunger. The kind that does not always roar. Sometimes it just hums in the background like a second heartbeat. You have likely gone to bed not fully full, and you wake with that emptiness already waiting for you like an unpaid bill. Your bread, if there is bread this morning, is coarse and dark. Maybe barley, maybe rye, maybe maslin, a mixed grain loaf that does not concern itself with fluffiness, softness, or emotional support. Medieval peasant bread is practical, heavy, and often dense enough to qualify as a building material. You tear off a piece and chew slowly because your teeth are doing their best under difficult circumstances. And speaking of teeth, here is a small but rude truth. Many medieval people suffered from dental problems, though perhaps not always in the exact sugar-fueled way modern people do. Grain, heavy diets, grit from milling stones in flour, poor oral hygiene by modern standards, and general wear could all take a toll. So yes, your breakfast may not only be underwhelming, it may also fight back. Sometimes, instead of a proper early meal, people simply ate when the rhythm of work allowed it. Historians still argue whether breakfast as a regular daily meal was consistently structured for peasants in all regions and periods, or whether the pattern varied more by labour demands, custom and season. In some places and times, an early bite is common.
Continue in part
in others,
2.
The first more substantial meal comes later in the morning after work has already begun. Medieval schedules a less balanced nutrition plan and more eat when you can, and hope God respects your effort. And what are you washing all this down with? Not a frothy cappuccino, tragically. Most likely weak ale. Now before anyone gets too excited, this is not peasants stumbling through the dawn absolutely hammered on breakfast beer, like a village music